Hello, I'm Oral, and welcome to Oral Goes Live, my guest on the program. For the first time, I'm sure you've seen him already in St. Martin. This Mr. David Salomon, how are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for having me on the show today.
It's good to have you in the program. When you walked in, I said, I never saw you before. And you say, what? I say, you went to school with one of my daughters, right?
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
I was surprised. Yeah. So how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, had a nice weekend. Relax. So happy to be here, fresh, ready.
That's good.
Let's get it.
I used to do this show years ago, Friday at 7 in the morning. I changed the Mondays and Tuesdays now. But it's good to have you in the program because I didn't really know about you, but you sent a letter to the editor, went to my junk mail, and I found it, and I called you. I was very impressed with what you wrote. You remember that article?
Yeah, definitely. The one about pensioners and the younger generation and our plight for financial security.
Yeah. All right. But before we get to all of that, I'd like my audience to know who you are because David Salomon, right?
Yes.
Salomon is a well-known name in St. Martin.
Correct. Yeah. But I'm afraid no affiliation. We're the Salomons originally from Suriname.
Yeah.
That's where I was born, and then lived on Curaçao for a couple of years first, till the age of 5, 6, and that's when my parents moved here to St. Martin, or at least we moved. My father was here before, and yeah, that's where I grew up. So went to Sister Mary Laurent's primary school, and then to MPC. And then went abroad to study.
So I had to see me driving there every day, dropping my kids, right?
Yeah, probably, probably.
Yeah, because they went to Sister Mary Lawrence School also.
Oh, also,
yeah, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So you're originally from Suriname.
Correct.
That's a big country, man. Bigger than Holland.
Yeah, definitely. A big country. Not that many people. I think it was 500,000 for most of my life, maybe now closer to 600,000. But due to the situation there in the early 90s, my parents decided to leave, which I think was a good move, and led me to, growing up here on St. Martin, the place I now call home, and no place where I'd rather be.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I always say St. Martin is the best place in the world, man.
It really is.
Great place.
It really is.
Yeah. So you ever went back to Suriname on vacation, anything like that?
Yeah, many times. Yeah. Many times over the years when my grandparents were still alive, we'd go back once, maybe twice even per year, especially in the beginning, in the earlier years. And then later that tapered off as we went to study in the Netherlands. We'd go back, once every 2-3 years, but I've been back many times.
So you have other siblings?
I do. I have an older brother. Yeah.
Okay. So you went to Milton Peters College?
Correct.
And tell us what happened after that.
After MPC, I went to study in the Netherlands. First to Tilburg, where I tried information management.
Tilburg?
Yeah.
A lot of local people study there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. In this case, it was me just kind of following my brother because he was there, and from here to know what's going on in the Netherlands, where should I go, what should I study? It's a big step, right?
Yeah.
So I think I went for the easy path there. Just said I'll pick a study and follow my brother. That in the short term didn't work out as the study. There were challenges there, etc., etc.
The party town.
Yeah, that the culture shift, from here, nice warm people, etc., to there, cold and more distant people, etc. So that took some getting used to, and it was only when I moved after 2 years to Rotterdam. I shifted my mindset as well for the study. I was going to do bedrijfskunde, And I really focused on, okay, this time I'm going to, one, integrate into the community. I think that's important. And I'm really going to make an effort to get that degree. And so 4 years later, I had my bachelor's. And then another year later, I had my master's in business information management.
So you went from Tilburg to Rotterdam.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger city.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a bigger city. But like we were discussing before, back in the day, when I was studying there, Tilburg was still a bit, I don't want to say it was racist, but it was a bit, you know, they would still kind of look at you from the corner of the eye.
Really?
That type of, yeah. You still had that type of feeling in a lot of cases. Or, you know, they prevent you from getting into a bar or a
Really?
club because of, oh yeah, your shoes. You know, they would still look for those type of excuses, etc.
And this was 1990 something?
No. This was 2008.
2008. Okay.
2008. But after Rotterdam, I went back to Tilburg actually, and in that short time, it was like 6 years in between. So I went back maybe in 2014, 15, somewhere there. You notice a big change already in the general atmosphere there, because they were opening up more to international students as well. So, you know, you can't keep that exclusionary mindset if you're opening up to international people. Yeah.
So you graduated from Rotterdam?
Erasmus University, yeah.
And then what you did, came back to Sint Maarten?
No, I didn't come back one time. I also wanted to work in the Netherlands. I was already working part-time job as an IT officer over there. And after I finished my studies, I did a SAP traineeship. Did that and worked for a couple of companies via a consulting firm. I worked at Philips Lighting for about a year and a half, and then at a couple other companies. And then it was like close to 10 years that I had been in the Netherlands in total. So that was the point where I was like, all right, this is good enough. And I decided to go and travel. And I moved to Australia for a year on a work travel visa, where I spent a couple months in Melbourne and a couple months in Sydney. And then I traveled up the East Coast. So I saw that side of the world too.
So you just traveling, wasn't working, and you're doing great, man.
So it was a stint, a quick time out from, I guess, the regular life. But I did work there. The wages there are incredible, but the cost is also incredible. So I worked as a mover. I moved furniture in a furniture store.
Yeah.
And I worked for a bank as well as a support, personnel support. Earned some money and then went travel. Yeah.
So after that, what you did?
After that, I came back to Sint Maarten. So it was always the plan to come back to Sint Maarten. Yeah, like I said, this place, it's home. It's home for me. It has been for a very long time. And I wanted to come back and contribute to the island in whatever capacity I could.
When you came to Sint Maarten originally, you was a small boy, right?
Correct. Yeah. I was 5 or 6 years old. So, you know, those important formative years were here. Yeah.
So your older brother, is he still in the Netherlands?
No, he's here.
Also Sint Maarten? Okay.
Yeah. He came back a couple of years before me. He now works at the Council of Advice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So both of you are back and your parents are here too?
No, the parents, they left back to Suriname once, I guess, I left.
Yeah.
My mom, she couldn't wait. She went. Because for them...
Life is different there for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. They grew up with that. Like how Sint Maarten is for me, Suriname is for them that, you know. And my pops, he waited till he reached his pensionable age and then he left.
That's great. So at least my audience now know who David Salomon is, right?
Yeah.
All right. So in case you've just joined us, I'm Oral Gibbs. This is Oral Gibbs Live. My guest is Mr. David Salomon. And Mr. Salomon is my guest on Oral Gibbs Live. We are on Hot 99.9 FM radio, YouTube, and Facebook. And he writes some very interesting articles. How many letters to the editor you've written so far?
I think the total is now 6 or 7. One of the two, yeah.
You remember what your first letter was?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure the exact order anymore. I wrote one when I came back on Singapore.
Singapore?
Yeah. I wrote an extensive piece actually
Why?
on Singapore because when I got back, I realized there aren't many countries in the world that through democracy in the last 60 years have gone from developing to developed. There aren't many examples. And so in a discussion with my father, I asked him, what countries can you think of? I think he mentioned South Korea, and Singapore was one of them. And Singapore being a small island as well, I was like, all right, that's going to be a good case study to see, draw some similarities, differences, etc., and especially learn from them. And what was the main learning point there is that they had one leader, Lee Kuan Yew, who through the democratic process, so he was elected, he was able to uplift that country from developing to developed. And that was highly impressive. And how did he do it? With vision, bold actions, and things like affordable housing. That was one of his main things, and retraining people. So giving people the opportunity to uplift themselves.
You also know that the ministers are very highly educated people.
They're ministers. Yeah, absolutely.
They're mostly doctors and engineers.
Yeah.
Did you see any similarity between Singapore and
Similarities in the sense of it is also quite a small place. It's much bigger than here, but it's still a small place. And what they have been able to accomplish is just incredible. It's incredible. And so the similarities were that they didn't really have natural resources or anything like that, but they were able to uplift their citizens, their people, to a higher level, which then brought, and through also bringing stability in your country, brought a lot of foreign investment into the country, which was not then just isolated to enrich a few, but really to carry up the tide so that everybody rose up. They're now maybe one of the highest educated people in the world.
I'm glad you mentioned all of that. I see a lot of similarities with St. Martin and Singapore. And the reason why I say this, and a lot of people might not agree with me, we came from a small little sleepy island where most people, my family didn't have to, but most families travel to the Dominican Republic to work, Curacao, Aruba, and so forth. America, they went. And in the late 1950s, early 60s, St. Martin started to grow. We were so poor that those same workers I mentioned that left to go abroad were sending back money to help their families. In the space of 25 years, this island skyrocketed. We had a laissez-faire type of government that didn't get involved in business affairs. It was, in a way, a free-for-all, good and bad, but the island grew rapidly. We had the largest hotel in the entire Caribbean at the time called Muller Bay Resort and Casino. It was huge. Employed over 900 persons. We had guests of over 1,500 sometimes. Everything moved in this island. Everyone came from all over. We were going very well. That progress and that growth is why I try to say we are a little similar to Singapore. Now, Singapore is remarkable what they've done. We haven't gotten there. and for many reasons. But I think it's good that you mentioned that because we can learn so much from it, and we can still probably, I think, correct many of the mistakes we made along the way trying to become, I think, one of the best islands in the Caribbean in terms of economic development, but we didn't develop our people. And I think that's where our problem was.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned that because I think that's the next thing I'm going to kind of look into is the history of St. Martin. How did we get from what you just described to where we are today? Maybe you can shed some light on that. But figuring that out and then kind of seeing indeed, like you mentioned, because I feel like we've plateaued, right? We've, and not to take that away from anyone, because the progress we have made is impressive. Even if you look indeed at neighboring islands, right, etc., St. Martin has achieved a lot. And so we can't just cast that aside. But I think we've plateaued with that vision of tourism, whether it's mass tourism or, or high-end tourism. It's kind of plateaued, and now we need to transition to get to other more sustainable, also in times of uncertainty, revenue streams, etc., new business endeavors, uplift our people so that we can get to that next level.
Let me ask you, in terms of Singapore, what's their main economy?
Finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And St. Martin? Tourism. And I ask you that for a reason. Because you ever been to Las Vegas?
I have not.
No, okay. I've been there many times because I'm in the television business and I'm a member of the NAB, so I go there often. And I've never been to Hawaii. But the point I'm trying to make, St. Martin, Las Vegas, and Hawaii, the three have something in common: tourism. And when you have tourism, this is not scientific now, this is just my opinion, what I've seen, observed. When you have tourism at that rate, for some reason, the natives of that city, that town, that country, after a while, they're put aside. In Las Vegas, I asked them, I get in a taxi, where you from? I'm from Uganda, I'm from here. And there, nobody from Las Vegas anymore? No. St. Martin, almost the same thing. You go to a restaurant, you ask, where you from? They're from somewhere else. Same thing in Hawaii, the people are put aside. Tourism has this effect that it comes in, helps your people, and then throw them away. They're no longer good to be a part of the tourist product and helping. They have to bring in more people now to feed this hungry, giant tourism economy, but the natives are no longer needed. That's my observation when I look at St. Martin, I look at Las Vegas, and I look at Hawaii.
Yeah.
That's the difference now when you look at Singapore.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. At some point,
I think somebody needs to look at that,
yeah,
do a study on that.
Yeah, because the jobs that tourism tends to bring in are level capped, There's only so many hotel managers that you need, but you need a lot of hotel cleaning staff, for example, or, so there is a cap on the potential growth for your broad base citizens with just solely focusing on tourism. You have to branch out.
And let me show you another point here. I worked in the hotel industry. I was a duty manager at Muller Bay when I came back from college. So the thing is that in the 80s, 70s and 80s, Muller Bay, the largest hotel in the whole Northeastern Caribbean, was managed by St. Martin people. And many of them didn't even have a college degree. Can you imagine that? Today now, in 2023, we have more St. Martiners with advanced degrees in hospitality. and very little of them get the opportunity to be in management in these same hotels that we built in the last 30 years.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big problem. That's a big problem, and I see it more and more. They call it the Queen's Red Race or Rat Race, something like that. That you have to run faster just to stay in the same spot. Back in the day, my parents, they pushed us to go and study, because if you study, you'll get a good job, and then you can build. That social contract is now kind of under tension. If I look at also what I mentioned in the article, my last article, within my friend group, it's 6 of us, highly educated people. We've come back. None of us own a house. I think none of us had kids. 3 are still living at home. 3 are renting.
Yeah.
And we all have good jobs. So what is going on there? What is wrong there? And the answer to that is inflation. But we could get into that a little later if you want.
Look, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that problem you mentioned of not having a house was listed as the number 1 problem for young professionals in St. Martin. And, I go back and I think, I was once a young guy, and I remember driving with my wife and looking at all these big houses and saying, wow. I said, honey, I wonder when we're going to be able to own one of these houses. Well, I work hard, and I married the right person that could save. And today I live in a beautiful house. Beautiful house, swimming pool, everything else. I think it's possible still, although it's harder. And every time it's getting harder and harder. I have children, and it's just like you. They don't have that at the age that I have it. So I can understand, and I don't know what to do, what we can do as a community to help young people like you achieve that dream. Maybe you have suggestions from a young person point of view.
Yeah, so it's the $1 million question, and it's a problem that we face really due to inflation. Inflation is a very, very nasty something that is happening on the background. It is taking away our buying power day after day without us necessarily feeling it, but at some point you feel it. An example is the sandwich across from the government building that I would used to get. Went from $3 straight to $4. That's a 33% increase, It didn't go to $3.10 or $3.25. No, it went straight to $4. That's significant. And how do you escape the vicious circle that is inflation? Because that, I think, is the only way that we will be able to make things better for everyone.
You can use it to your advantage also. I had a professor, economics. He's a driver from Pace University, or small college I went to in New York before I went to the University of Buffalo. And he said, you take a loan, you pay back over 15, 20 years, you're paying back with cheaper dollars.
Correct.
Because of inflation.
Yeah.
You can use it to your advantage too. Yeah. I don't think sometimes people realize that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And that's why, access to capital is important. I think here our banking industry has some catching up to do, what that is concerned. Not that, just in my personal experience coming back to the island, it took me, I think, 4-5 months before I had a bank account.
Really?
Yeah.
That long?
Yeah, it took me that long. While when I was in Australia, there for 1 year, I walked into a bank. 5 minutes later, I walked out with a bank account. Yeah. Now, please tell me why that is possible there. But here we have, for our own educated that are coming back. Doesn't matter educated, not educated. Anyone, our own citizens come back, and then it takes that long to open a bank account. It's really, yeah, it's sad. It shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the case. And then coming back to the point of inflation, absolutely. But there's a bit of a challenge there now because the housing prices are going up and up and up. It's almost impossible now to buy something as a single person that is, decent, to be able to leverage that inflation that is going up. Pair that also with the high interest rates right now. There's there's facets and challenges that young people are facing, which is leading us to having less kids. And then that bottom of the age pyramid that was in my last article is getting smaller and smaller. And what challenge does that present is that then the working base gets smaller, and so your pensioners are then put under even more pressure.
Yeah.
I did a quick analysis with a colleague of mine. He's working 20 plus years, and we just summed up how many steps have been taken that were not beneficial for him in the last 15 years even, I think. And it was 7. There
Really?
were 7
steps.
They went from last pay to last 3 months, and they went to average pay. Now it's like a deferred pay, something like that. And then the age went from 60 to 62 to 65, and that one doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon either.
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, but Mr. Jim, in the Netherlands, interest rates are still very low compared to St. Martin.
Yeah.
And there's some reasons for that. But in St. Martin, I remember back in 1992, 93, a mortgage was at 13-14% interest rate.
Really?
Really. I had my first mortgage at 13% interest rate.
Wow.
So you see, that's why I always talk about this professor I had, economics. I had micro and macroeconomics with him. It makes a lot of sense. The problem is, and you pointed it out also, is the interest rates here, if you compare it to the Netherlands, a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more security, financial security, in a country like the Netherlands than here. There's a lot of risk in the Caribbean. Caribbean countries, banks lose a lot of money on loans, and so therefore the rates tend to be higher. So depending on where you live, it makes it difficult for a younger person.
Yeah, correct. And I guess also the economies of scale here.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's less loans. So if one defaults, the impact of it is higher than in a country like the Netherlands. Yeah, and that highlights the reason why we here on St. Martin need to be actually more efficient than in other countries.
That's a bad word. You use it, efficient. What? Go ahead, explain that one there, please.
Yeah, no, it's something that I practice in my daily life. I try to do things as efficient as possible.
That's why I asked this.
Yeah. And one could then argue, like, what are you doing here? But I'm here to, I think and hope, contribute to making things a bit more efficient. And so whether that's through my articles of highlighting these things or whichever means, but we really need to strive to make every decision and every dollar count on this island, because we don't have the luxury of size or amount of people.
Yeah.
We have 50,000-60,000 here, and we have to make smart decisions that benefit the masses in a good way. A great example there is SZV. I wrote maybe a Facebook post about it, not a letter to the editor, but the new amendment to the law that said everyone making less than 100,000 is now falls under SZV.
Yeah.
That's all well and fine, but the amount of premiums that myself and my employer are now paying per year it's absurd. It's something to the tune of 12,000 guilders for my person. How does that make any sense? It's for a relatively young, healthy person to be paying that much premium per year. And I get it.
You think they should take age into consideration like normal insurances do?
You should definitely take those type of factors into account, because and instead of and that was the point of my article, instead of, because this was a relatively easy change, a swipe of the pen and more money's flowing in.
Right.
That's fine, but what are you doing with the money that's being spent? Did you scrutinize how our hospital is operating? Did you put measures in place to ensure that efficiency, that's that word again, is being applied in the hospital, SZV, et cetera, and those things tend to be missing, or if they're happening in absolute silence.
I'm sure you pissed off a lot of people with those questions.
But these are the questions that need to be asked. We need to operate based on accountability as well on this island.
Another bad word.
Yes, but we have to do it because, and that's an interesting part to share, is that you asked me if I went back to Suriname. Yes, I have, many times. I've seen Suriname over the course of 30 years be a poor country and stay a poor country in financial sense, because in resources it's a rich country. It's a very rich country. So why did that happen? Why in 30 years time was there little to no progress made? And the answer to that is corruption, greed, lack of efficiency, nepotism, all in the name of leadership. Exactly. And so I'm genuinely worried for the future of this island, because you're on a slippery slope. That's another article I wrote about the democratic trap, or the vicious cycle of if I cannot trust my government to do what's best and right for the people, then focus purely on personal gain, then why should I care as a person? I will also focus on personal gain, and then we become a island and a people of all I care about is personal gain. So I don't care if I have to take advantage of X, Y, Z, and you create that negative spiral and you lower the bar consistently, and then at some point your officials are just robbing the people blind, essentially, and that further then decays the trust in the overall system, and then you end up in a negative spiral which can really end badly. And so I'm worried that could potentially happen here, and so that's why I do what it is that I do.
Mr. Salomon, what you just said is already happening here, unfortunately. And I listened to you, and you kind of shocked me, because I have that same concern, very worried. I was born here. I love this island. I sacrificed myself for this island, actually. And in the process of sacrificing for this island, my children have been punished by the system, by the authorities, because of an outspoken father who dare to challenge the establishment, who dare to point out some of the things that you are now pointing out. And I'm much older than you. And I started this program back on the 1st of March of 1984. And then I did all different types, radio, television. Today we have a radio station after applying for a license for more than 23 years.
Wow.
Okay, because of my position as an individual in this country. And everything you said a while ago is so true. But there are people who are not going to be happy with that at all. And we still have some time to slow it down or turn it around.
Yeah.
And And how old are you? 35, 36?
33.
33. When did you realize those things you mentioned there? Because it's so true, man.
I think soon after I came back, or maybe even while I was studying in the Netherlands, because you always keep an ear to the island, and you see the trends, and you see this island has a lot of potential. It really has a lot of potential, and so as a efficient person, it's sad to see that potential not being utilized, not being brought to its full fruition. And that's where you start thinking about these things. And I, in my case, started writing about it and trying to do, my part to get the island to where it needs to go. And in that, one thing I've noticed is that one thing we don't do very well here anymore, I think, is build and foster that sense of community.
Yeah.
So the one time we do it very well is for Carnival. What I noticed when Carnival time comes around,
different time, yeah.
Doesn't matter the obstacle, people will make it work. I saw a podcast
and
with fast too. I saw a podcast with friends of mine, or at least one friend of mine, and they're debating about the trucks and the costs and this and that. I was like, if we were half as critical and as energetic about our governing system as we are for Carnival, we'd be millionaires.
Wow. I'll tell you what, Mr. Salomon, I have to go to a break, all right?
Okay, no problem.
When I come back, we're going to continue speaking with Mr. Salomon right here on Oral Gibbs Live on Hot 99.9 FM radio.
Hey, don't guess about your insurance. Be sure that you're covered. Like with your car, like your home. Be sure to be covered in case of a fire, flood, hurricane, or some other natural disaster. And travel insurance, because you never know what could happen when you're on vacation. You could lose your passport, your luggage, or have an accident. So be sure that you're covered.
Insure yourself fast and easy with Be Sure from the Windward Islands Bank Limited. Visit your preferred WIB branch, WIB Insurance Services, or BeSureStMartin.com. Get your Be Sure insurance at the Windward Islands Bank, your partners in progress.
For real? Somebody came in here and steal my curtains? Well, it's a good thing I'm insured with Be Sure, because even the contents of my apartment are covered. Don't play guessing games with your insurance. Be sure.
Are you be sure? Be sure.
My guest on Oral Gibbs Live is Mr. David Salomon, right?
Correct, yeah.
And he's here with me, and we speak with him on Hot 99.9 FM radio and also on YouTube, Facebook. And we had a very interesting conversation during the commercial break. I don't know if you would like me to just go back a little bit on it.
Sure, we can do that, yeah.
So Salomon was telling me that he got some advice, and I guess you were surprised when I told you that was good advice in a way, right?
Yeah.
And it's strange because I shouldn't tell you it's good advice, but the reason why I tell you it was good advice is because you pay a very, very high price. And if you're going to have children in this island and you want to protect your children, then you got to stop doing and saying the things you're doing now.
Yeah. So I think for the listeners, it's important to
viewers,
and the viewers to mention.
I try to be evasive on that. I want you to go in.
Yeah. No, I'll give a little.
Yeah.
The advice I got was basically, don't worry too much with the bigger issue and the rest, and just focus on yourself and, let's say, self-maximization, whether that's in learning or experience or those type of things, as opposed to trying to fight the good fight and stepping on toes, etc. in that process. And so
even knowing that you're stepping on toes, by the way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so Yeah, it's a tough one, right? It's a tough one because if you're a principled person that really wants good for the island, I think it'll take a lot of licks, as we say on St. Martin, to steer me in any case from that path. And I think we need more people like that and make that maybe a small or a loud minority to get the realization on the island that, hey, listen, this current path and these current decisions that are being made or not made is really not beneficial for the island.
But you know, Mr. Solomon, maybe you don't know me. I was kicking ass on this island. Okay, I came back from the University of New York at Buffalo, started my radio, my television show, and a lot of people didn't like it. I was really pointing out a lot of things that you now today also pointed out. I got married, had children, attempts were made on my life to assassinate me.
Oh, wow.
And kill my wife and I. We have gone through a number of sacrifices. I've seen what has been done to my children who are highly educated women. They're not just you run of the mill, they all have advanced degrees in law and medicine and psychology. So they're not your average person.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is that when you have children, something happens. But when you see people messing with your family, it's not the same as when you were out there kicking ass because you really care. And I love this country. But all the sacrifices, all of the tracking on my family, okay, all the surveillance, even when I travel abroad, you can name it, all the different, I can write a book, what I've sacrificed. You got to be prepared for that. And I'm telling you, if you're prepared for that, if you're ready for that, fine. There's another young guy in St. Martin, not young, he's about my age, had the same problem. I warned him, and today he said, you were right, because I live it. I live it for the last 40 years, and I love this island. And let me tell you, I admire you. As a young man, I haven't seen a person in the last, 20 years on this program that impressed me the way you impressed me. And I like what you're doing. I wish we had more like you, because it would make a big difference for this island. But at the same time, if you're willing to take that sacrifice, if you're willing to do all of that, and maybe it might even be worse than what I had to go through, then I say, look, I'm happy for you.
Yeah. I think in that it's important, and it's something that's in the works. We don't have to, or I don't have to carry the burden all alone, right? I think there's plenty of like-minded individuals on the island, whether older, younger, etc., that want better for this island. And the key, if you ask me, is that we have to organize that group. That group needs to get a voice. That group needs to be well organized to then, from a place of, more power, and in the sense of power through community, once again, that we tell the establishment or the shadow establishment, hey, listen, no, we want different, and we have to do different. And the craziest thing to me is that saying again, a rising tide carries all boats up, If the island is doing much better, everyone is better off, not just the select few, everyone. And that better is not only financially, but also, in healthcare, in education, our roads, all these things. Yes, they all require money, but I want to be able to send my kids, if I have them one of these days, to a school that I could be like, I could pick any number of schools because they're all great schools, you know, with motivated teachers, with, you know, that's what I want to get to for this island, so that it's better for everyone.
You know, you mentioned group, and I was asked when I was younger to join one or two different groups. And they said the same thing you said, because in a group, it's different. But I had different viewpoints than them in terms of politics, religion, and other things. It just didn't match. So I never wanted to be. And furthermore, groups are infiltrated, and you think that you have the backing, and then in St. Martin, a lot of people will be smiling and happy, and they're the same ones cutting your throat. And the thing is that it is so difficult, because what you said is so true. If you have a group, it's a lot better. It's the safety in numbers too. But I don't know. Maybe the times are different now. Maybe you can find 10 or 15 guys like you. You know, when I came back, we had less educated people at the time. You know, today there are a lot more educated people. Like I told you earlier, we have many people with advanced degrees in hospitality, and they're just not there. So maybe you can find that group that feels the same like you.
Yeah.
But just be careful, because the politicians are watching.
Well, to be honest, I already started it. I started a Facebook group.
Yeah.
It's called the St. Martin Advocacy Group.
Okay.
And in it, all I ask for is that people advocate for things that will make this island better. That's kind of, you know, and there's a couple of basic guidelines, you know, in it.
What are some of the key points they made?
Of the group?
Yeah.
Well, so I started the group, and it's there, and I post, you know, my articles in there. But I need to revamp it again, get new life into it, and I really push for that, because it's not a political group.
Right.
That's important to note.
You don't have to be a political
Exactly.
group, man. As long as you're saying things you're saying, you become a target, man.
No, but I think it's important, you know, that the people who want better for St. Martin get together, and then even if it's things like, you know, like last time, Ralph Cantave and others, I forget the other person, organized a cleanup of the monument there behind the dump. Great initiative. Things like that we can all get behind, help out where we can. Those are, I think, the guiding principles that we can start with, and you start tackling small issues. At some point, I was ready to buy the Aquafalt and the stamper, and I was gonna go fix some potholes. But I got some advice from people saying, no, you can't do that. It's public works. You know, what if an accident happens, etc. Which is also a funny point, right? Because I agree with that, but it's like the bad guys, they don't have to subscribe to the rules and the things of order. Well, the good guys have to, you know, to the T, because you don't want to put yourself in any type of liability cases or whatever. So we have to fight harder because we respect the law and respect, you know, policies, etc., and responsibilities. So we have to fight harder and smarter to then offset the quote unquote bad guys that are you know, just doing whatever they want.
Great idea. Look, I'm gonna give you a little brief history. You know, when I went to study, I didn't go to the Netherlands. I went to America. I love America. It's a great country. I had a great time there. Never any problems. My children studied in the Netherlands. A lot of the people I knew studied also in the Netherlands, and a lot of them, when they came back with a elitist attitude, and I'm not an elitist. No, I'm very down to earth, believe in bringing up everyone with me. So I'm not an elitist. I don't want to be in an elitist organization. That's why I avoided some of them when I was asked to become a member. The thing is that this is a unique island. There are a lot of people that are poorly educated, cannot write a letter per se. We still have a lot of people that don't really comprehend what they read. Unfortunately, this is St. Martin. We try to deny it and avoid it. It's actually getting worse because we are importing a lot of people from all over, and they're coming with their children. Some of them are not even in school, so it's going to get even worse. And I look at you as a young man saying so many things that are important to save St. Martin. So I have hope. I have hope in people like you. The problem is if you do anything that's elitist, a group of certain people, then you're going to miss the point, because a lot of people who you want to target, they're going to just look at you the other way. And I don't want to call names, but there are organizations that were here because of them being elitist, well-educated people, mainly from the Netherlands. In fact, they shunned us that were educated in America, by the way. They're the problems. They're some of the causes of the problems we have today. Okay? Mm-hmm. After the program, I'll tell you, because people will ask you what I mean, but I'm not going to say that. So I admire what you're doing, man. You're doing a great job. That article, that letter on the elderly, powerful, to the point. You know, and you made all the different, you gave the examples and so forth, solutions. We need to see more of that.
Yeah. And now with the new currency coming out, it offers, and I thought about it more. Because when you think about it, we have a fairly unique situation there, that we have two currencies, but a foreign currency is our predominant currency. And so I don't claim to have all the answers there, but it would make for a very interesting case study to see how can you leverage that unique position, that uniqueness that we have, to your advantage.
What's unique?
What is unique is that we have a foreign currency that is more predominantly used than our own.
The dollar.
The dollar. The U.S. dollar is way more prominently used here. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and actually very interesting point was made. She asked, can we limit the use of the dollar in, for example, the housing market? And that's not very realistic.
She's paid in guilders, right?
Yeah, she's paid in guilders, exactly. Yeah, as most of us are, you know. But it did get me thinking, like, you know, why did she say that? What was the logic behind it? And it is that in the housing market, we are paid in guilders. U.S. citizens are paid in dollars. And so, and they can easily come over here and purchase, you know, property. And so we are competing with individuals that are earning in dollars while we're earning in guilders. And that has created like a disconnect in the affordability of the houses. Now, sure, if you say, you know, you can't use a dollar, people will just put the price of the dollars in guilders, so that doesn't hold up. But it is something interesting to think about. And then coming back to that earlier point, we use the guilder, or it's our official currency, but the dollar is way more used. That, I believe, maybe in a couple of other highly touristic islands and places in the world might also be the case, but it's fairly unique, I think. And so I believe through the central bank, we should be able to leverage that to our advantage. For example, saying that the guilder, we're going to back it way more with physical assets, gold, cryptocurrency.
It used to be gold years ago.
Correct. I believe it still is, but
The gold in reserve, I think, because it's been pegged to the U.S. dollar. And the U.S. dollar since 1973 no longer backed by gold.
correct. Absolutely. So I believe the central bank still holds some
we have
gold.
large reserves of gold.
Yeah. And so that's a good position to be in, and you should try to, and that's coming back to how do we fight inflation? How do we escape that trap? And that is via means like that, new innovative
What do you
thinking
think if we do like what the Dutch government did on the best islands?
that we join them.
No, the currency. The Dutch government for the best islands didn't bring the euro.
Yeah.
They did the U.S. dollar.
Yeah.
Believe me, the Dutch are the best when it comes to trade and money.
Yeah.
They go back many, many years. There's a whole history about the Dutch and trade and banking and so forth.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they're not stupid.
Oh yeah, no. Don't get me started on the
No.
Dutch.
So think about it. I think maybe the dollar might be the best. Then
Correct.
you get paid in dollars. Then there's no problem.
The only thing is, the only danger there, and I still need
There's
to
always a
verify
negative
it.
on something. Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Is that I believe in, where was it? Bonaire? They went from the guilder to the dollar, but
Prices go up.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
But
know.
the salary
Didn't go up.
didn't go up. So you didn't pay me my salary what I have now 1-to-1 to dollars. No, you converted it.
Yeah.
While the prices did go 1-to-1. So something costing 5 guilders now costing $5 after.
Yeah.
That's a massive hit to your purchasing power.
And there are other negatives involved there, but I think the Dutch were being practical and realistic and said, well, look, let's just use the currency for the Caribbean part of the kingdom, U.S. dollars, and they did it.
Yeah.
And we spent too many years and decades trying to study things that the answer is right there.
Yeah.
That's all. Efficiency, again, to use a term that you like to use, and I think efficiency is important. We need to act quick and stop lingering. Now we're going to create a new guilder again. It's crazy.
Yeah. But, and if we're going to do it, then try to do that smart, because the problems with the dollar and the inflation are bigger,
Oh, yeah. And the future of the dollar doesn't look too good.
Exactly. And so we need people to start thinking about these things. Otherwise, the problems we face today are just going to get worse.
Wow. Mr. Salomon, I only have 40 seconds. It's all yours in closing. Anything else you want to add?
It was Lee Kuan Yew who said it. He said, this thing governing a country, an island, it's not a game of cards. You have to take it seriously. You're playing with your life and my life. And that's the message I want to give to anybody leading the country. It's not a game. Take it seriously.
Well, Mr. Salomon, I want to thank you for coming. I wish you much success. I admire what you're doing, and you're a brave young man. Continue doing what you're doing, all right?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And that's it for now here on Earl Gibbs Live and Hot 99.9 FM radio. See you next time. Take care. Bye.